Right, so welcome to the last paper before 2030 curriculum. So I'm sure because you are doing SL1, probably you have one or two subjects to become a chartered accountant in 2025. So that is why I have named this as cracking ABR, because if you really look at pass rate is not very great. In some period the pass rate is not that great because this is a very challenging paper. The reason some of the students, even I had conversation with some students who are struggling to get through this. Why? Because they are not taking an holistic approach to this paper. Make a console එකක් හදලා ගියොත් හරි කියලා හිතාගෙන ඉන්නවා, right? So most of the students fail to understand about 40% easily you can approach if you are master of applying practically corporate governance, right? And then there is definitely wrong perception that this is an auditing paper. There is an auditing part in this paper. That is wrong because there was a syllabus change 2 years ago and some of you and most of you are not aware about it. They still continue to say, this is auditing part. Wrong. And I am going to prove you that with the latest paper. So this is a very valuable introduction session to understand. Now see this picture. So what do you see here? What is the new look? When I say new look, now finally most of the chartered accountants' dream is to be a CFO one day, right? So here I am not comparing CFO, but the idea is that there is certainly a new look which is more appealing, right? Obviously you will see one is more appealing than other. I am not going to make comment on that, but fact of the matter is that when you become a CFO, because all of you are not going to be in audit firms and practice, and that is why under the previous, I can't say previous, under the current curriculum, there is no real advanced audit and assurance in strategic level. There is no auditing, right? Because majority is going to be in commercial sector. So therefore this ABR paper under current curriculum, being your last exam, right, is designed to give you that holistic perspective of a CFO, right? Holistic perspective of a CFO to look at how to deal with complex issues, especially dealing with group accounts, very often consolidation, and some of the accounting issues, specifically revenue recognition, financial instrument. Look at the past papers, the questions that have been tested. And then as a CFO, how do you look at behind numbers, right, through the risk, through the lens of risk, behind numbers, how to apply the thought process of an auditor but not auditing. As a CFO, how do I know my accounts are going to be misstated? How can I ensure that my internal controls are robust? That is where 25% of the marks allocated to the segment of risk of material misstatement, right? That is why I am saying, now this time one of the students who talked to me, and I advised him 2-3 times, ABR failed. So හැම පාරම වෙන්නේ ගොඩාක් වෙලා ගන්නවා console එක හදලා ඔක්කොම කරලා බලුවා අන්තිම වෙලාවේ අනික් ප්‍රශ්න ටික දාලා දානවා. That's not possible because you don't, again like I said, you are missing the opportunity to easily get about 40 marks. But this time the students said, so I was so happy because the way we looked at pre-seeing the question that we anticipated, all were there. So I'm going to discuss with you all these questions in a little while, right? You see the way this session is structured by looking. Now when I say new look, it's not a joke, right? But why? The paper has changed, right? Because the real syllabus change that happened in 2023, you are not aware. This I'm going to prove how examiner is now, right? Now when I say now, the last paper one before changing the audit to the CFO perspective, and that is very much evident in June 25. That means සති දෙකකට කලින් තිබුණ exam එක, right? Now let's look at, are you ready? So anything, I know you are new to this subject, but anything you do in your life, start with the end in mind. You are approaching a new subject, think that I am going to be a CFO and I am going to really, obviously will have to pass this paper. But the knowledge that you acquire in this paper, enable you to become a more holistic chartered accountant who can advise the board in terms of setting governance process, audit committee, risk committee. Now that is one thing I emphasize in my pre-scene discussion. Now you can go to YouTube and watch that session, and I emphasize students, a big change is that the whole risk management has come in new corporate governance code. There is emphasis on risk committee. Now in Sri Lanka, very few risk committee, audit committees are only there. How do you embed risk management? And I told students, look at the listing rules that have changed, right? The focus of audit committee and risk committee is very high. And also in my, if you again, you can go and see my pre-scene which was done 1 month ago before the exam. I told students sustainability is a hot topic. This type of question you can expect from board of directors angle, how sustainability related information is governed in S1 standard. Sustainability, again open book, new open book. These were debated, discussed, and I told students specifically 25% of your syllabus is to look at behind numbers the risk of misstatement. How do you look at from that as a CFO the risk? How to write an answer in risk language. The case study was a telco. All this I told. Look at again if you have a doubt my video done for the pre-scene. And this is the paper. See, as a CFO, right, evaluate the risk. This is the same wording I confidently told students. Look here, this question is very much to be expected in the paper, right? Why? Because that's the new look which I mentioned to you, right? So new look, no auditing, right? But risk, the lens of risk of misstatement from CFO's perspective, assertion, which assertions are going to be impacted, the course of framework, the audit committee, risk committee. So as a CFO, how to activate your governance hat, right? How to activate your governance thinking, and then support the board. So that is a practical skill that you will acquire in this course. I am telling you, you will be very different, holistic accountant if you really do what? Not to just listen video and go. But remember, this is a very, very powerful quote. If you want to be very successful in your career, it's not just passing exam and getting a qualification. There are so many, you can see there are a lot of qualified accountants, but why they are stagnating in their career? What are the future skills mapped in new syllabus? Your digital skills, sustainability skills, governance, these are embedded to all the subjects. And now, if you look at the latest curriculum, which I'm sure you are not doing that, so there is a separate paper for risk management, those who want to perceive in risk, right? So that's where the subject has become important. So it's not about theory, it's about how to intertwine these two and become successful. When you learn, to learn, not to do is not to learn. Learn, do, and then achieve the results. That is true learning, right? So I think that is a quick intro, and I hope now you understood. when I send this sessions PowerPoint that this is for my session, right? One of my colleagues asked, "Sir, මේක දැන් මේ වැරදිලාද මේ?" Right? But I wanted to emphasize that you need to be aware about changes, right? That's the whole idea. So during next 40 minutes, you will get a holistic picture and confidence to approach this paper based on the latest past paper I'm going to go through. This is not a session but intro, but we are starting with the end in mind. This is my end paper. I will not only show you the latest paper in June, one before in 24, at least 3 papers, but don't spend so much of time when this syllabus 4 years before, how it was tested, like auditing question, audit procedures, going concern, these will not come, right? Why? Some of you know now, one student asked me, right, now sir, this study text, now auditing, there are some chapters on risk. Can we take this as open book? Should we take auditing standard? Now that student is not aware that this study pack is open book in this paper for certain segment. You are not aware. Some of you may not be aware. By the time you are aware, time is gone, right? So now from day one, make sure every day is counted. I am going to show you in an Excel And all these sessions I will go live to the system LMS and show how you have to plan your life. Now the beauty is that when we were discussing good old days, maybe before COVID, right, all physical classes, right, and students have come in from, they have to come far away to Colombo to learn, and if they miss a lecture, it's gone, and they just record the voice sometimes and go. Now those are not there. Now entire syllabus, if you want to learn in 1 month, one day it's also ready, right? And if you're a smart student, I have an approach called power play. Those who are very smart, who wants to really do in 20 hours this paper, that is also possible if you're so smart and if you know how to navigate. So that I call power play. I have several session named as power play, right? You spend 30 minutes and that 30 minutes give you power to directly approach papers. There are sessions done in that way, right? So my point is that these sessions are well planned. If you go to the LMS, that every month what you need to study is mapped, and by October everything is over and start. Don't wait till October to do the past paper, but past papers also you can do parallelly. Every instruction has been given, right? What you need to look at in June, you do full corporate governance and be ready, right? And that, remember, this entire book, I call it open book. There is 2-hour session that covers, right, most critical aspects of this, and then how to apply this through case studies, and then how past paper questions are answered, right? So that is in June. You allocate corporate governance, what percentage, right? 15% corporate governance and sustainability, non-financial reporting, right? Very critical. 25%, actually it's not 20, about 25 on risk of misstatement as a CFO, how you look at behind numbers, the risk, how to write that answer. I'm going to show you based on the latest report, because it's not a rocket science. For you to come to this level, you have learned most of the subjects now. But then you are not really, maybe you are not familiar. If you think this is auditing and I have to write audit plan in question, totally wrong. Don't get misled, right? So how as a CFO I should analyze risk, right? What I'm showing you, the latest paper and one before, maybe another one, right? And understand that and learn how to write, and that otherwise you will waste a lot of your time, right? And likewise by October, you do everything done and past papers are available as you do each session to go through. This is your plan. And you need to actually have a plan to make sure that this plan is delivered and answer questions by yourself. If you don't do that, I had a student who didn't do any work, right? And this is for actually CL1. I told him he had only 3 days time. This is your plan, do it. And I'm sure he will pass this time, right? And that is how you need to know how to approach based on your time. But you are so safe, and this session is for those who wants to get the prize for this paper, right? Because if you are good in consolidation and application of accounting standard, remember again, this 25%, this should be 25, most of the risk of misstatement connects to accounting standard. Those who are good in accounting standard should know how to think like a CFO and how to write those answers. Then there is about 30% of this paper on accounting standard, 30 plus 20 is 50. Right? And then if you do the consolidation and little bit of ethics and other question, you are heading 70, above 70, so you are heading for a prize. අනේ සර් අපිට 50ක් ගත්ත නම් ඇති කොහොම හරි එහෙම ගන්න අය 50කට plan කරොත් 50ට වඩා අඩුවෙන් තමයි නතර වෙන්නේ. Aim the sky, right? Rather than aiming at your level. Right? It will fly much higher if you aim the sky. So aim the sky and work towards that. So that is the holistic picture of what we do. Now let us start. This one I already covered. Basically to say that there are students, they watch videos, කොහොමද video බලන්නේ? Phone එක තියාගෙන නිදාගෙන බලන lectures. කරලා නිදි, right? Without discipline you cannot do this. You have to seriously commit. Although you are watching a video, assume that, because it's all to do with the mind. You can program your mind. Now I am in a classroom. Your bedroom can be the classroom, but sit, watch the video, make your short notes, and then next day do a question and say, I'm done, I'm ready. If exam is tomorrow, I'll go. That, remember students, in this life the most critical thing is the time. There is a day that you will find that every minute matters to me. Why? The hingakama gana katha karana scarcity, right? If you count, we have, all of us, say you are living 80 years. Now nowadays find anybody who in our generation and your generation, the expectancy, life expectancy reduces. 80 is a big achievement, right? Then what will happen? 80 into your sleeping time minus the time that you waste, the time you are worried, social media, waste time, eliminate, and see actually do you have time to live the life, right? If you are failing doing exam repeatedly, what a waste it is, right? So if you spend half an hour for study, that half an hour should count as marks in the exam. That's my way of teaching. That's why I very often say this is power play. And any smart students, I can have a folder called power play, go through and do. But if you want to be a brilliant student, I said you what? Learn, apply, and be a very mature, successful professional in the market, business leader in the market. So this teaching is not just to pass exam. For last 20 years, I am so happy to see so many CFOs, wherever we go, directors, right, saying, so this is how what we learn has helped us to come to this level. So I am not teaching to anybody to pass exam, but to change the life. Passing exam is for sure if you are on the right track. And that is what it is, right? So, without further ado, let me ask you this. Now this, with my 20 years of experience, telling you, undoubted success, like I said, with very limited effort. So I always use this strategy called less more in studies, right? Less more, very, very powerful, right? Less more and more time for your life as well. Can anybody guess what is less more? The less effort, more results. Like I said, half an hour I study, and that half an hour I want at least 10 marks in the exam. Whereas another student will read all the books, everything, memorize, make short notes, but haven't answered any question, can't answer any question. So what is the effort of 8 hours study, 5 hours study? Useless. So what is the smart way to study? You must know. I have done a separate video, I think, smart way to study, right? So anyway, smart way to pass exam is to think like examiner. How do you think like examiner? So I have set papers, not for chartered accountancy, right? So the examiner will look at only one critical document, and in that one phrase, one sentence for each topic, and those are called LOs, learning outcomes. Any case study, any question has to be framed within that LO. The syllabus has given this LO, and especially you need to be aware when syllabus comes to the last end and this is the last paper. So the examiner wants to cover all the LOs during 5 years, and especially be aware that if there are some LOs not tested, those. But ඒක ගිහින් map එකක් කරලා හදන්න time waste කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. But when you do your study, all the LOs will be covered, right? And then how you answer this question of, so now I'm going to prove you how to do this. So the success when you watch a video, නිදාගෙන ඉඳලා බලනවට වඩා seriously බැලුවොත්, by watching that video, so I have done one video. Now I said this entire book, critical areas, say 2-hour sessions I did very recently. Navigating corporate governance and listing rule. I'll show you where that video, I put it for this month, July. And apply to case study, right? Real life. Not to be a parrot and read this book and you will not sometimes quickly answer. Because applications are weak, right? So the point is, first, by watching that video, why you are watching this video? Because I want to know, if you take risk of misstatement, there is a LO called evaluate risk of misstatement. Now, how can I study that? What should I look under that? Which pages of the study text which I can use for that knowledge, to acquire that knowledge now? And then can I write an answer, and have you written an answer? And that, if you have done that, Brilliant. The first is to really understand the LO, right? What LOs are critical, and learn that LO, you actually understand that, and then you can really apply and write an answer. This is the secret. But how you practice this secret depends on whether you are smart or not. Now I will prove that with a past paper. Which paper? The latest paper, right? Now, I told this slide I showed you just before the last exam to students, and I told the students the most advanced learning outcome which is really possible to come in the exam is this. Evaluate. Action verb evaluate is a high level one. That means you can get maybe 10 marks or more, right? Because that requires, whole idea of evaluate is you have to put your judgment into the answer. How, as a mature person, you evaluate that, put in your judgment and case study facts and write it. In a given case study, right? How significant risk, right? Business risk. See the language, risk language. That's why I said this is CFO perspective, right? These LOs were introduced in 23. This is syllabus change. You are not aware. How business risk result in risk of misstatement. Now, based on the business risk, how do you derive? Simply, if examiners evaluate wrong from a CFO's hat without writing an auditing answer, how to do it. So this is what I told. When you learn this, you need to really understand risk management a little bit from the course of framework, right? That's where it is not even connected in the exam. This is a column in the syllabus. It doesn't say auditing standard here, but then you can go through that chapter. It's an open book. Now, last exam, right? I'll prove this. I told you first you need to understand what is this learning outcome. What do you mean by business risk? What is risk of misstatement? Is it at assertion level, right, or financial statement level? And then it also talks about fraud. You need to really read and understand this is the concept behind it. Okay, let me drill it, right? I will drill it now, taking 2 minutes. If you want to identify risk of misstatement, as a CFO, you need to look at, this connects to auditing, but it's not auditing. What account balances or transactions have the highest risk for a misstatement? And that we call inherent risk, right? And then based on the case study, why this inherent risk comes? Because by nature, this transaction is complex, or this transaction involves judgment, right? Or the complexity, again, if you ask why complexity come, it may be large volume, it may be multiple systems that are being used, judgment, or there can be management bias to manipulate this account. And the most likely account balance or the transaction is revenue. And I told in the last exam, when examiner tested this case study, see the way question is framed. This is for a telco company. It's very much dialogue, right? So can you write, no point of knowing this theory, forget IR. How can I write based on the case study in a telco that why revenue can be overstated? Why? This is the answer. Even if you forget the case study, when you know that it's a telco, what assertion? Now the question assertion. What do you mean by assertion, right? As a CFO, do I know my revenue? I am concerned whether all the minutes are billed, and what is billed is accounted, and that is called completeness of revenue. As a CFO, I should know, as a business risk, is there a chance of revenue leakage? So the business risk is revenue leakage, right? Here, one of the business risk is revenue leakage. If revenue is going to leak, then I am concerned about control. Do I have internal controls? Then if examiner can ask in another LO how to apply CASriLanka framework to evaluate, there will be another question called evaluate internal control framework. When you say evaluate internal control framework, you are looking holistically all 5 components of CASriLanka. දැන් මේ කියන ඒවා Greek වගේ කියලා හිතන්න එපා. මේ සමහර ඒවා ඔයාලා ඉගෙන ගත්ත දේවල්, right? But this is about quickly figuring out what is applicable to an answer, right? So now if I go back to telco case study, how to write answer. Now I said one of the business risk is revenue leakage. Now how it becomes a risk of misstatement, then use the assertion language. There is a possibility that, oh, now I am not writing theory. All the minutes which are captured in telco, minutes, no calls, right? Minutes, all the minutes captured, right, are billed to the customer, and what is billed is accounted for. So how do I know whether that happens? In telco, there is a greater chance it may not happen. Why? Now I am writing. I am using my theory to write answer. My theory ne mewa inherent risk කියනවා, complex කියනවා, judgment කියනවා. දැන් මෙහෙමයි ලියන්නේ. There is an inherent possibility in telco because because of the large volume of transactions that are being processed through multiple systems. There is a switch, there is a billing system, there is an accounting system, multiple systems are interconnected. So there is what? Large volume, complex IT systems, and then based on the different types of the call package, the rates differs. The complexity of applying the rates, this creates an inherent complexity. As a result, there is a possibility that revenue may not be completely accounted for. If you write that answer, you will get 2 marks. That's how you generally write answer. But you can't also write general answer. This is what examiner gave. To think like a CFO based on this perspective. Last paper, June 25. Now I told students, really look at this learning outcome. See how examiner tested the same way. I told you if you want to pass the exam, you have to read the LO. No? Now we read the LO. Evaluate risk of misstatement, right? This is how examiner has asked. Think like a CFO. Yes? Hurry. Then see the action verb evaluate. What? Risk of misstatement. That could arise from this financial year for December. Telco is December. Based on the above. And that is where you apply theory to a case study, right? So now, මේක නිකන් හිතලා ලියන්න බෑ. දැන් මේ ටික කියවන්න ඕනේ. මේ හතරම. How you connect theory to this application? If you haven't done this and your accounting standard knowledge is critical because the risk may not arise, right? Okay, the business risk can be there, but then how do you apply accounting standard? I'll show you now your accounting standard knowledge. You can't, that's why these two subjects are connected, the risk misstatement and accounting standards. I have one video recorded saying accounting standards from a risk perspective to look at in every accounting standard is one video, several standards, look at from a risk perspective, right? Now, look at this. Now in the introduction session in 1 hour, I am discussing you the latest paper. To give you the confidence is very easy, right? You have to just evaluate risk, no risk to accounts. See the revenue, if you talk revenue, revenue may not be completed, right? Or property, plant and equipment valuation. We'll figure out what account balance has the highest IR based on this statement and where are the internal control weaknesses. Therefore, ROM is high, and how can I convert these two answers and get 10 marks? And you will struggle to get that 10 marks elsewhere doing so many calculations and spending a lot of time. This is very quickly 5 points, 10 marks, right? And exactly 5 points given. This 5 you convert from risk language and get 10 marks. Well, let us see, 1 or 2. We'll take all. Now, progress of SLT commitment, this is very similar to dialogue. You can think dialogue in your mind when you read this. Progress of SLT's commitment to introduce 5G to Sri Lanka operation in the financial year. They are going to introduce 5G. So what? How 5G can affect my risk? Yeah, the moment you see 5G, if you are very a smart student, na, 5G කියපු ගමන් දන්නවා risk එක, right? So why 5G? So they are going to start 5G, right? And then they need a lot of money to implement, right? 3 billion. So as a CFO, do I concern? Yes, I am concerned about one account balance. If I bring 5G infrastructure, how about my existing infrastructure? those assets, the networks and other infrastructure which is 4G, is it going to be impaired? So my assertion is PPE valuation, that is my assertion. My business risk, if examiner asks this, identify first business risk. Yeah, business risk is technology change to 5G, and as a result there is a possibility that certain assets capitalized as PP, right, may not generate income, right? So that means the recoverable value may be lesser than the carrying value, which requires impairment assessment. And then I am adding another line to my answer to get that 2 marks, that impairment assessment involves subjectivity and assumption, therefore there potentially it can be misstated. දැන් මේ ටික ලියන්න ඕනේ තමන්ගේ අතින්ම තමන්ගේ වචන වලින්ම තමන්ගේ වචන ලියද්දි technical words, some words you have to use, the word impairment, the word valuation, right, things like that. So that's one. So we got 2 marks, right? Introduction of new postpaid package in the financial year. Now, can anybody confidently discuss this paper? Because the answers are not yet released. But I am telling you, if you are confident, if you have learned it, you don't need any answers. You know what the answer is. That's why when any students who learn well, even in our time, we asked from brilliant student, and I did it, we did it. We taught students to do it. After the paper, tell you are passed, go through or not. Brilliant student will say, sir, I through. And I know I am looking at the price. You don't need results, and you plan your future from the day you sat for the exam. You know for sure you are done. Because you are thinking like examiner, no? You did the same thing examiner wanted, the yellow studied, yellow applied, wrote, so sure. So I worry. Right. Introduction of a new postpaid package in the financial year. Now there is a new package they are introducing, postpaid package. Now they say 7,500 50 GB data. මේවා හොඳට familiar නේ, 50 GB. Wow, 1000 minutes, right? Any network. And then also they are offering a smartphone worth of 100,000 with 0 interest. Now can you figure out this? What does this entail? What is the key accounting issue here? And that accounting issue, if not properly sorted, result in a risk of misstatement, provided is significant, right? Now there is a bundle in here. You are introducing package with a phone, and then if you embed that into price, you know, under 5-step process, right? You need to unbundle the components and separately recognize. So if not done, there it will be misstated, and then that process is not very easy. It involves judgment of allocating the prices between the two and recognition. Complex and judgment, therefore may be stated done. That is one. The other answer which you can connect this to is that, you know, the complexities of packages like this may result in, you know, if systems are not configured to apply this minutes to any network and so on, because previously I said the complexity may lead to revenue leakage or incorrect revenue. Then expansion of the network in the northern province, eastern province in the upcoming year, terms and condition of the lease agreements to be signed to locate, right, towers in such provinces. They are going to expand to different areas. And usually, you know, these telco towers, you have to get a land on lease. The moment it is said, what comes to your mind, the new leasing standard, right? Now, for those based on the terms and condition, you will identify what? What is the new model, right? So, based on the, now you know traditionally operational is, but now you identify what is your, based on your time, you value that. If it is 10 year, you recognize it. But beyond that, do you know there is something called asset retirement obligation? Now imagine you get this on a lease for 20 years. At the end of 20 years, you have to remove this tower, right? This is called asset dismantling cost, right? At the end of 20 years, you have to spend 20 million, sorry, let's say 10 million to remove this tower and restore the site and hand over. So this 20 million, right, sorry, this 10 million you have to discount today and capitalize together with asset, right? Your right to use model, lease you have to value, right? And then you have to plus asset retirement obligation. You debit to asset and create a provision, liability in 20 years time, what is today's value. Now that is accounting, but risk perspective. When you read the agreements, now you look for these clauses, whether there are clauses that involve removing the assets and preparing the site, and then look in the conditions to identify number of years, whether there are prepayments, how to deal with it, and recognize your part of the asset, your part of the right to use that involve complexity judgment. So that's the answer you have to write in risk language. So see that to write that answer you need accounting standard knowledge, and you are connecting to this IR and CR and writing the answer. It's the whole question of writing the answer and explaining the business risk as well. Then terms and condition of the loan agreed by parent company. There is a loan given by the parent for 5G implementation. Now see, imagine this is an intercompany loan. So intercompany loan need to be disclosed. The moment is said, very quickly you figure out. And also if this loan comes at a cheaper rate, then you need to ensure that it's recorded at fair value. So if not done, the disclosures, fair valuation and risk of misstatement done, no? Another two. Then status of the assessment issued by Inland Revenue. Now based on that assessment, right, can there be a contingent liability or provision which require disclosure liability? Done, 10 marks. That is how you use accounting standard knowledge and also the risk perspective and convert. If examiner asks, evaluate internal control environment based on the course of framework and write an answer, write it. Many times tested in the exam, or 3 times, so 4 times the course of framework. Those are the popular questions for 25% of the paper under ROM. Not auditing, right? Then, and another thing I emphasize students, this is so hot. S1 and S2, right? Really hot this year, 2025. Top 100 companies. Now companies are looking what to do. They started recruiting people. Now if you are a CFO, if you have a holistic governance, sustainability, internal control knowledge, see the job market. Much higher you can go than the traditional accountant who prepare accounting. That is why, who prepare accounts, schedules, what for. Now you can, most of these skills, right, you can digitize, robotics, Power BIs, power automation. So these digital skills change the career of everybody. If you are not learning this, you are out of the jobs. You will do a job, but very boring job. That is why in new syllabus there is a lot of emphasis on digital. That is to say, when you learn this subject, your perspective, you will broaden your thinking horizon that I want to be a modern CFO who think digitally and who embrace sustainability, and that is what is in new syllabus as well. Anyway, now also this is tested, new syllabus went on. Now this is again in my session, 2-hour session which I mentioned to you, which was recently done. See the date. So this I told students from corporate governance, these are really hot topic. Audit committee, risk committee, ESG, how to deal with it with S1 and S2 and cyber. Famous topics even for your exam, right? And I do 2 hours. No, if you are really smart, this 2-hour video like critical. And after that, do past papers without much work, still enough to pass exam and write good mark. 2 hours, right? Less more. 2 hours, that's it, right? Of course, study text also, there are so many, about 50 or 100 pages about corporate governance. If you want to learn everything, please do learn. But also be smart. How can I look at less and get more marks? Less more is very important, right? And then I told students listing rules. This I told you told students in last 2 batches. because this is again recent, not a very old listing rule. After many years, the Colombo Stock Exchange repealed the previous 710 and introduced a new section called Section 9 and brought a lot of changes about policies on corporate governance, the risk committee fitness and proprietary criteria to be a director, things like that. And specifically, there are these 4 committees. They emphasize any committee. The rules I very simply taught students that any committee, there are 3 people, right? One is every committee, an independent director shall be appointed as a chairman, right? And every committee at least should have 3 and 2 should be independent, right? This you can really keep in your mind as a framework. 3 members, right? 2 independent. These critical 4 committees. Now knowing this information in many questions help you to quickly figure out corporate governance. This is called LESMO. Okkoma committees එකපාරට, right? And then really looking practically each committees you should be able to evaluate. So now here I am talking about 15% of syllabus. ඉස්සලා කිව්වා 25යි කියලා. දැන් මේ දෙක එකතු කරොත් 40. Then if you add ethics 45. So this is the power of this section. Sometimes analytical procedure type questions also added here in many papers nowadays. Even in the previous paper the examiner is asking calculate some ratios and apply, right, solvency and so on. Now I told you in the last, I don't go to a lot of technicality in this paper, but a big change from a CFO perspective, audit committee versus risk committee. Now this book has a lot of material on risk management, risk committee. I emphasize this point in the last paper. Students look at the audit committee, traditionally look at these areas, right, about the going concern, performance, risk management. And then if examiner asks you how to set up the audit committee charter, responsibility, this is how you need to answer. This is the page number. If it is open book, you must know the schedule M is important. This is all in my 2-hour sessions, right? And I told students, look here, listing rule also talks about audit and risk committee both, right? And then specifically, if you don't have a risk committee, audit committee can do that task. Then what are the new jobs that audit committee has to do? And that you must know, right? So then this is audit and risk committee, and what is in red are those new areas from risk management perspective audit committee should do as per listing rule. Now are you aware? Now this is to see how outdated you are or updated you are, I don't know, right? But most of the times students are not up to date. It's not for student. Lot of directors are looking for this knowledge. A lot of directors want people who can support to get rid of these regulations, right? Because you don't want to get a market announcement saying that this company is non-compliant and going to default board. These are SEC listing rules, right? And this we discuss. And the whole idea is not just to learn, but to apply and go higher in your career. We teach for that, not just to pass exam, right? Still I teach for that passion, right? So then again, after reading corporate governance, look at practically how companies are applying. Now here I am applying to a large organization in Sri Lanka, right? All of these companies, see, Aitken, Spence, everything comes under this one company, right? Melstakrop. And we looked at critically these directors and why this managing director, chairman, and now who is the current chairman, and then how they have justified that. For example, they say as how do you evaluate with a corporate governance knowledge a scenario like this, right? There are 4 independent directors, and see this point here. Now somebody, right, exceed the 9 years. Now 9-year rule is a famous one. After 9 years, normally person is not independent. Now, when company make a case that still, although 9 years exceeded, doesn't compromise independence and objectivity. Also, 70-year rule is not met. So, if I ask you to evaluate a case like that, what is your answer? එතකොට හිර වෙනවා. අර memorize කරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා answer කරන්න අමාරු වෙනවා. Why? The application not thought about it. So that is how when you learn, you need to apply. So now I told you about listing rule. So again I am taking this paper. What is this paper? Now see, I am taking again latest paper, June මේට වඩා අලුත් පේපර් එකක් නැහැ නේද? තියනවාද June 25? තියනවා තව එකක්. ඒකට කියනවා December 25 කියලා. So today we are in July. Look in this question. If it comes, can I get another 10 marks? Right? And can I use that experience at my work? Yes, why not? Now see this question. I emphasize much about risk committee, audit committee. Now they have given that there is a chairman who is a fellow member of CASriLanka, an audit firm partner, retired audit firm partner, right? Composition of which committee? Audit and risk committee, right? Now see this question that you watched my last video before the exam, that practically how risk committees are important. Now this is audit and risk committee. So now we see who are the directors. There is Sumed, who is also a fellow of CASriLanka, non-executive. There is another lawyer, right? Another retired banker, another retired officer from regulatory. A lot of retired people, fellow member of CA, who is a member. So look at them. But the question is, the audit and risk committee meetings are conducted once in 2 months. Is it adequate? Those are simple questions. Evaluate the composition and affairs of audit and risk committee as per the requirement of CASriLanka code. This 10 marks, right? Very, very easy. I already showed you to look at it, especially from audit committee perspective. But if you want to really get this 10 marks, you also need to draw attention to risk management role of the audit committee. And you may additionally comment little about listing rule, rather than just saying that number of directors are less. Obvious points are there. They have to meet more than 2 months. You can also comment on whether this member, see 10 year kepu gamang, there is a concern, things like that. You can easily pick, but to get really 10 marks, you need to ensure that you write some rich points also, right? This is how examiner is testing. So easy, right? And then if I go back to another year, this is June, December 24, right? 24, one more year, right? Now here similar table given and asking, comment on the board, board committees based on the code of best practice, and then evaluate non-compliance. This is the period, again I emphasize students much on the listing rules. See these new listing rules. I mean, so easy, less more. Right? If you want to really now work with less more, watch my 2-hour video, right? And then additionally, you want to be a prize winner, also go through other topics in study pack, right? But all past papers, if you look at, they are continuously testing on corporate governance codes, so give more attention, right? While study pack has lot of theory, not very much tested, no? So, right, now other thing, then samahara lamai, then man kiwa, මේ paper එක change වුණානේ audit perspective to risk, which some people don't know. That is the period the auditing standard book was removed, and this was given as open book. You can take this. These 3 chapters basically helps you to figure out, give you knowledge, theory to know how to. But even though you read all these chapters, you can't answer questions if you don't know how to practice. That's why every time there is a folder with past papers. හැබැයි මතක තියාගන්න, new look. මම පෙන්නුවේ පළවෙනි slide එක. New look, you want to see that again? Huh? So new. Now start from here and go back if you want to, right? Okay, now we are here. So all this book, right? Start from now. Make sure that before the exam, all of this, you just watch a video and quickly. Now when you watch my 2-hour video, this book is all highlight එකත් එක්ක තේරුම් අරගෙන ඉවර වෙලා underline කරනවා. Done. මට ආයේ බලන්න දෙයක් නැහැ, මේක අරපු ගමන් I know what is it. In the exam also, if I need this page, do a charter, look at it and answer. That's how you need to look at it, right? So then the other hot topic is sustainability. So I'm coming to last 15 minutes of this discussion. Please ask questions if you have, and remember that very easy to be motivated and excited and not do anything after that. මේ කණෙන් අහලා මේ කණෙන් යවනවා, right? Yes, you are who you are. If you want to transform yourself, I have 5 minutes advice in this lecture to change your life, right? So do that as well. So this hot topic, sustainability in 5 minutes. IFRS, Cell FRS S1 is called sustainability related financial information. ඒක නිකන් disclosure standard එකක් නෙවෙයි, quantify කරන standard එකක්, climate risk, financial risk, financial information. It connects to numbers which some people don't know. Although it is non-financial, it is quantification, valuation, modeling, all of that. When it comes to S2 climate risk reporting, accounting for carbon inventory scope 1, 2, 3 based on the greenhouse gas corporate accounting standard and CASB standards. They make a Greek wage. හැබැයි ඒක තමයි S1 එකේ essence එක. Essence එක තමයි you need to disclose. See the word in red, financial information, sustainability related financial. What is it? It means SRRO. What is SRRO? Is about any risk that is going to impact your financial prospects. Prospects means either your cash flow or access to capital, right? Access to, see, cash flows, so access to finance or cost of capital, not only in the short run, medium to long run. How to do that? What SRRO means? It's not only SRRO, SRRO plus. Imagine, now practically, yeah? Now you have a factory operating in Bangladesh, some period severe heat is such that you can't work, and some period flood is such that you can't work. Unless you have planned, there is a period your factory doesn't work, so you don't fulfill the orders, you are really in danger and trouble. That trouble you have to disclose what are you going to do. That is S2 standard, climate risk. And look at your carbon inventory and account for it. Quantify scope 1 emission, 2 emission and 3 emission. This is what now much demand is being created for accountancy profession, for accounting, for sustainability related financial information. Very powerful. Watch this video from now and learn those skills and be marketable and give that benefit to your company and train others. And with that, you need to also disclose governance, right? Strategy, risk and targets. So this is the S1 and S2 standard at a glance. So එහෙම කිව්වට ඉස්සෙල්ලාම දැනගන්න ඕනේ what is SRRO. So the SRRO very easy, coming from if companies depending on resources and relationship, then SRRO will come if those resources are not available. If this relationship is broken, look at the pictures, the resources are now not there, and you need water to do your operation, any operation, right? If you use large volume, say you are a factory, you do washing type of things, you can't run. So how you relocate, right? And then you have a relationship problem that you can't buy from foreign supply. There's a regulatory thing. With US there is a regulation, you can't order from China this thing. It's actual, now what is here. Then that is going to impact your cash flow. That is SRRO. How are you governing this? And also the impact you are creating. That's SRRO. And this SRRO is similar to what is in integrated reporting as 6 capital. Do you know that link? Have you ever thought that there is a link between S1 and S2 and integrated reporting framework which is also in your syllabus? No. Right? That's what you need to learn. And then this standard requires you to disclose based on CASB standard. What is CASB then? Each industry, there are 77 CASBs, standards for different industries. If you are in IT, there is a CASB. If you are in apparel, there is a CASB, and that CASB is in apparel. These are the SRRO. So everything given, right? And the most difficult one, you need to account for carbon emission, right? Scope 1, 2, 3. Now, I told students the most important thing in this SRRO for this paper SL1 is the governance. Which committee, audit committee or risk committee should do this? And then I told even last paper students, from a governance angle, if you have a board of directors who have no clue about carbon inventory, what is scope 2, 3 also not known, climate risk, what kind of climate risk? We want to hit the monthly sales. Then they don't talk sustainability, right? First of all, board doesn't know. Board doesn't have knowledge. Skill එකත් නැහැ, competence එකත් නැහැ board එකට. එතකොට මේකෙන් අහනවා how board is going to develop their sustainability skill and competence. If they don't have, how are they going to develop? And then how board is going to discharge this responsibility about disclosing sustainability related financial information? Is it there in any charter? Which committee? Is it audit committee or risk committee? Or sustainability committee? That you must know. And then how information come into the board discussion, right? And then how these information used in board decision making, and especially target setting, the emission target. The biggest topic is emission, right? Scope 1, 2, 3 emission. එහෙම කිව්වම Greek වගේද දන්නේ නැති අයට, scope 1 means what you burn inside the company. Scope 2 is what you purchase. Scope 3 is your employees are going individually in their vehicles and emitting. That is also scope 3. They are travel and your suppliers emission. So how you account for carbon emission, right? How you calculate carbon accounting. And this is again the last paper, June. See the paper 25. The same question. So you look at again my video before the exam. It's obvious, right? When there is a time relevance that certain new knowledge comes, always examine that, right? So now here, it simply gives you a paragraph that Terra PLC, right, has embraced strong commitment to sustainability. Net zero is a target, right? So what they emit and what they get from solar, they want to be net zero, right? However, board has not integrated sustainability into risk management, formal governance structure. There is a limited alignment between long-term strategy. There is no alignment. They just do sustainability but no connectivity. Management has begun to set targets, and further they are aware about S1 is coming. S2 also coming on climate risk. And then the company has not yet developed a clear framework for SRRO, right? Sustainability related risk. Evaluate company's board role in overseeing implementation. Board role. So this is something I really emphasize. The answer is here. How you connect this answer and write. Now see, that's how you get the marks. And students, that's come to the end. So this is a very important session, not just to pass your examination, but to change your life. Because I told you less more, whatever subjects you do, right, you need to be disciplined, because the most valuable thing, you can have your inventory of future, the minutes that you are going to live. 80 years, if you think you are very healthy, and you don't drink and you do exercises and you are happy, then you have 80, right? But no one knows how long we can live. So then why waste life for waste? Repeated exam is a complete waste. And doing exam without having ability to apply a job and being successful is also a waste. You have qualification, but your potential is not really realized. So what? You need to be very smart, right, to have a vision. So I really invite you to look at this. Is something I really encourage you. Be the best version of you. Simple guide. Very powerful, prominent book that was issued in the recent past called Atomic Habit. But look at the essence of it. Have the idea that one day all of us have our own unique identity. If you look at my career from where I started to now, I had a dream, and now at this age also I have a dream, but that is very different, right? But to come to this level from where I was, a very unheard area, unheard school, right? I mean, there was a peak period, so peak, I am not doing now physical lectures, right? Immense success in lecturing, no, the house full lecturing, all of that gone. Meaning I have a passion to develop people and help students I still do, and I have the passion and the energy. So what does it mean? Why I took that example, that in times back, say when you establish an identity that I want, this is my identity, right? And then for you to go there, you need to change what? Don't think about your goal of being an accountant or goal of being a successful business leader, but look at the system through which you are processing your everyday and what you do every day to reach that. Look at the system view, and then what you want to achieve. Don't think about what you want to achieve. Think who you wish to become. This is the type of person that I want to be, and that is called my identity. You identify yourself, say, as a business leader, right? Example, right? Then you work towards that. And then සමහර අය ඉන්නවා හැමදාම worried exam එක ඉවර වෙනකම් pass වෙනකම් තමයි සතුට. හැමදාම එතකොට worried. වෙන වෙන ප්‍රශ්නත් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි exam එක fail වෙනවා. එකක් then and then why then you are every day worried, no? And again fail exams, and again until you now like that you have become older now. Till what age you want to do chartered, right? 30, 35, 40, right? Now when I went to CA Institute, I was wondering when I met a student, so I have been teaching for 20 plus years, right? And I have seen this student in my physical classes many years ago, and then still I see he's studying at CA Institute. I got a shock. Why? So don't waste your time. Then there's a problem in the system. What are you doing? And then also you are worried. So the tiny things that you do every day matters. That's why it's called, what's the name? Atomic. Do you know atomic? The smallest thing that you can break something in physics, atoms. Little thing that you do every day counts a lot, and when you do that little thing, be happy that I did it today, half an hour. I did it, and this count for 10 marks in the exam. If I do a paper, so give a credit to that and be happy. And work like that. 1% change every day, right? See this book I am taking from James Clear, Atomic Habit. 1% better every day. Compound effect is you are going to be 37%. 37 times better at the end of the year. So there, what matters is your identity. This is what you want to be. And look at the process, how you spend the day, and then what is the outcome, right? So that's the essence. With that, we don't conclude, right? I also take another 5 minutes to navigate you how all the sessions are recorded, and this time schedule I showed you, right? And sorry, this is the entire plan, but in this also I said there's something called power play. And I told you about corporate governance, the latest thing about the new corporate governance code, right? Areas like that, when you have a bigger picture, you must know, okay, out of this whole thing, what really matters for me to get through the exam? And I have limited time, how do I do that? That also matters, right? So let us spend another 5 minutes, right, to navigate that, how you look at all of this, what I said. So this is how you navigate. So I just got into the course, and as I told you, this is July plan for you, right? And I told you less more, that those who want to really, now you figure out that you're outdated in corporate governance, and I want to really navigate the new corporate governance code and listing rule 2025, right? See this. A to Z with listing rule and apply them in case study. So this is a series of short sessions that I want to do, so that with limited time you learn a lot. So that's our plan. And then obviously when the session is live, you can just live join and make sure that you learn it. Right? That's the session series. That's our plan. So remember my message. I want to do, so that with limited time you learn a lot. So that's our plan. And then obviously when the session think like, and you, and right, I am saying is to learn sessions to really how to apply and make sure, because most, okay, and I don't worry now, right? So corporate governance section of the listing rule has been changed, and now because of that some companies are changing, even some of the board, the case practically when I do these sessions I look at these companies and say this is what they have done it, right, this is how they have applied it. So just to look at, you see, right, so that is that's the 2-hour, this is an intro, and then there beyond the intro there is a 2-hour video totally on corporate governance. Then if you look at the plan for July, the tutes are given here, and then after every session there is a case study, essential theory, case study, a question that you can write your own answers, right? So likewise you can navigate the whole corporate governance, and then these are, for example, things like corporate governance theory and practice is a chapter in the study text, and you at the end of this you make sure that all of your corporate governance book chapters are read. And then this is a hot topic, right? I said this is 25%, so these sessions are to be uploaded. Now your whole July month plan is here, right? And then when it comes to this, you can see how you look at entire corporate governance, and this is a very important one, risk of misstatement. Again, one thing which is very, very important, syllabus revision June, please make a note, there is a separate pilot paper issued by the institute, how to write answers from a CFO perspective, and that is really key. And because now examiner is giving question like that, there are 4 sessions here, these are really about the CFO perspective. These sessions are critical, because some of the older past papers, even some of these old videos which I will not upload even, right, because those are the way that paper was originally designed from audit side. Then with limited effort, how you really answer, for that this syllabus revision series and some of my new sessions and past papers really matter. Then internal control is a critical chapter, and sustainability also included, non-financial reporting, and you can see all the past papers, right? And again my advice is these past papers is critical, start from the end, from new papers to old papers, right? And when you do the past paper, the rule is make sure that you have understood everything and then write your own answers. And after writing your own answers, you can give marks to you and be happy that you have accomplished. And exam එක ඉවර වෙනකන් ඕනේ happy වෙන්න. Now you know that you can pass the exam. So with that, we will conclude our introduction session for this last exam, right? And wish you all the best.
Infinity Space. වෘත්තීය ගිණුම් කරන අධ්‍යාපනය සඳහා වෘත්තීමය සන්නාමය.